Awesome. Okay. And we are live. Alrighty. Okay, viewers, thank you so much for looking in on us. This is another episode of the Kudosee Strategic Leadership Video Series. Very, very happy to do this series. Kudosee is in the business of helping organizations visualize, communicate, and execute strategies in real time. And that's why we decided to do a series on strategy, the wonderful, exciting topic of strategy. And so this week, I get to talk with Mike deBoer. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Val.
I'd love to share Mike's bio with you all. He's an advocate of matching people with experts, and he's got a real true life story as to why this is so important to him. So I'd like to read his bio here. In 2016, Mike was crowned Western Canada's strongest natural man. This incredible achievement is even more remarkable when you consider how it all happened. So phase one. 20 years of dedicated and solo weightlifting, zero awards. He assumed that he had bad genes. But phase two, 4 years. So that's 4 years of receiving feedback from experts and training in community. Boom, he won Western Canada's strongest man. And he realized that training with experts is exponentially better than going it alone. And then it hit. He had been trying to become a better version of himself his whole life, a better leader at work and in his community, a better husband, a better father, and he had been doing it solo. So thus, Leveling Up was born. So with Leveling Up, you and I can get a leg up from experts of our choice. We don't risk being unsure, unseen, or unaccomplished, which are hurdles in themselves. And we can fully uncover our own potential, which is kind of cool. So if you guys want, while you're watching this series, if you want to go, if you're by your computer and you want to look up everything that Mike is all about, look up levelingup.ca or Google Leveling Up Leadership. Either way, it'll get you to his website, fantastic website. And today we're going to discuss transparency in leadership. When we lead with transparency, it sets a standard for the rest of the organization. And so Mike and I are going to talk about transparency in leadership. So Mike, let's define transparency in leadership. Is there even a definition?
That's a really good question. Just a quick note, Val, your microphone is rubbing on your collar a little bit, and it's giving a little bit of static.
Thank you.
Easier for folks without that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so transparency in leadership, that's a really good question. In my way of thinking about it, we've all heard of Simon Sinek, the Start With Why guy.
Yes.
To me, transparency in leadership is all about leadership that starts with the why.
Yes.
Where I would communicate, or where the leader communicates the why behind their vision, the why behind the direction, the why behind the leading. It's really, it's not an easy kind of leadership, because in being transparent and communicating the why, there's a risk. There's a real risk. I am trusting you to come alongside me in my why. I'm trusting you to agree with or potentially disagree with my why. If I'm not transparent in leadership, if I'm doing telling leadership, then you don't know my why. You have to follow. That's sort of an authoritative leadership model. A transparent, of sharing my why. I am communicating to you that I trust you to make a choice. I trust you to choose to follow, and in doing so, if you choose not to follow, well, then that's part of the risk. But if you do choose to follow, if you've signed up with, if you've agreed with my why, then then trust comes from trust. I am building trust with you, you're trusting me, and we're able to partner in leadership together. Um, and in being transparent in leadership and telling you my why, in really leaning into that, I am trusting you to be able to accept that I'm going to be honest about the battle, about where we're going, because leadership is about going from point A to point B, and it isn't always going to be easy. It isn't
No.
always going to be clear
Yes.
cut. And so I'm trusting you to understand that and to buy into that. Did that make sense?
That totally made sense, and it is. It's worth the risk of putting that trust out there that this is my why, and I hope you're going to get on board with it. There is an element, but yeah, if you give trust, you often get trust. It's just mirrored back. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Mm.
Some of the values at Leveling Up are growth, trust, which we talked about a little bit, community, and respect. Let's talk about the links and relationship or an exchange between these values, because they're all sort of all interconnected in some way, aren't they?
Yes, yes. That's a great question. So leveling up is all about a journey of growth. My strongman story is
Yeah.
about a journey of growth at leveling up. Uh, we started in the field of leadership. We've pivoted. Now our journey of growth is for artists. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who it's for. Leveling up is about a journey of growth. Um, the journey of growth is one that only happens in a place of vulnerability. I can only grow if I am honest with myself, if I'm honest with others, if I'm vulnerable about my abilities. There's this thing called imposter syndrome. Maybe you've
Okay.
heard of it,
Yes.
where we are afraid that other people will figure out how little we can actually do or how little we actually know, and so we fear disclosing, we fear people seeing us as an imposter, so we hide. And this is not a this is something that impacts the vast majority of us. We all wrestle with this idea that we have to hide our lack of capability. So it's only in being vulnerable that we can get beyond that imposter syndrome, and we can actually say, okay, here's what I'm actually capable of, and here's what I'm not actually capable of. I'm getting to the point here.
That's okay.
Vulnerability really can only happen in a safe space. And that safe space in Leveling Up's vision is one where there is community, and in that community where there is trust and respect.
Wow.
So that safe space, we create the ability to grow by allowing folks to be vulnerable, and we allow folks to be vulnerable by giving them a community in which they are seen and heard, where they are trusted,
Yes.
they can trust others, and they are respected by others. And actually what it comes down to for us is there's a lot of confidentiality. These are small groups,
Yes.
and they're confidential. The discussions aren't shared, and I guess in the same vein, our values are expressed in our product. In
Mhm.
these small groups where you grow and learn, the same values are reflected by the individuals leading the organization and in the team. As the leader of my team, I have to lean into the fact that I need to be vulnerable. I need
Yes.
to let them know that I don't know everything. So I'm a transparent leader. I tell them the why. I try to not go into that place or imposter syndrome. And we have a small group in our team where we treat each other with respect. It's a community, and we're all trusting each other with our inadequacies or
Yes.
our inadequacies or our adequacies,
Yeah. Yeah.
and really leaning into and growing with each other.
That's so cool. And that's exactly it. Imagine being able to blossom in an environment that's so nurturing like that. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to worry about just being yourself because yourself is accepted. You know, the good, bad, and the ugly. It's all there. We're all those pieces, right? But when you can be and work with like-minded people like that, what a way to grow. What a way to blossom.
Mm.
Um, Another leveling up value is giving. And I got this off of your website. This is fantastic. Again, guys, if you want to go to the good website here, it's levelingup.ca, or you can Google it by Leveling Up Leadership Inc. Very, very good website, very, very informative. But this is one line, I absolutely love it. It starts off with giving. Our integrity requires that our people helping people business also be a business helping people. First time I read that, I thought, okay, I got to read that again. Our people helping people business also be a business helping people. Absolutely love it. Any experiences or stories that you can relate back to that?
Um, a few thoughts. So I could break my arm, pat myself on the back, and talk about how we've in the past brought in customers who wouldn't have been able to afford leveling up, and we gave them out of our profits the opportunity. I don't want to focus on that. We are in the process of creating a bursary program for artists. What I would focus on with that giving value is what we have experienced is we're a two-sided marketplace. We have these master artists helping to equip growing artists. And what we have learned is the master artists that are successful in their mentoring are those that come into this with an abundance mindset, because really that's what
Yes.
giving is about. Giving
Yes.
is about saying that there is enough to go around. And really the process of creating art is an abundance mindset. We're not in competition with each other. There's enough to go around. And it's those masters who have really leaned into not holding back the secrets,
Mm-hmm.
but really leaning into saying, here's what I do, and whether it's the technique piece of art or the selling part of art, say how to negotiate with galleries or social media, all of the tips and techniques that these masters have learned, really leaning into that abundance mindset of giving of their knowledge, has really allowed our members to grow and blossom. Uh, we just on the business model side of things, we actually don't ask the mentors to volunteer their time. It's a compensated
Mm-hmm.
model. They're paid for their time, but it's not the time I'm asking them to give of. It's the attitude of what they know that we're really leaning into. And I guess one other thought about our business helping people business. Um, our business model, and we use video conference for delivery platform. We were Zoom before Zoom was cool, I like to say.
Nice.
What we really are trying to lean on is, we're trying to create a product that before this model was devised really was only available to 1%. And we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to say, look, we want this to be available to the 99%. We want this to be affordable, to be accessible. We want this knowledge, this wisdom, this experience to be given, in a way that the 90%, 99% have access to.
Yeah, yeah. That otherwise wouldn't know where to go, how to go. Do you know what I mean? How do I connect? How do I start this? How do I connect? How do I reach that person that would really mentor me? That's so needed. It's a needed element out there. And the wonderful thing about giving too, in this whole abundance idea, is that when you give, you don't lose anything. You're not giving away and thus losing. You're giving, and it grows exponentially. What you give just gets bigger, which I really like. Leaders can accelerate growth with trust. So we talked a little bit about trust already. There's a line on your website that says, "We facilitate opportunities for people to be everything they were created to be and to experience the dignity that results from that journey." Absolutely love that phrase. Any great examples? It is a dignity from the results of that journey. Growth is a very complex thing.
Yes. And so this imposter syndrome thing I mentioned can make it hard for all of us to to really dive into that journey of vulnerability and growth. So what our experience has been is that our members come for the master. They come for, they've been following David Langevin or Mark Hine or one of our masters on social media. They say, "Oh, I get to be mentored by this master. This is fantastic." So they come for the master, and they join a small group of like-minded artist peers. And after a couple months, the narrative inevitably changes, where they say, "Oh, I came for the master, but I'm staying for the community. I love the people in my group. I'm learning so much from these people in my group, and lo and behold, they struggle with the same things I struggle with, and I can share my challenges with them." So in that space, they find this dignity that they don't have to sort of be alone in the world and say, "Oh, I'm the only person struggling with this," but they realize, "Oh, hey, here's a whole group of folks just like me that all want to get to similar spots and are all challenged by the same sort of lack of confidence or lack of skill or lack of whatever." And so by finding equals, by finding community in that safe, trusted space, yeah, they really find that confidence that they didn't know they had, or maybe knew they had, and it's no longer about confidence, but it's about, feeling able and feeling capable and feeling accepted and feeling like you are good enough.
It's that confidence that one gets. Yeah, they might have known they had the confidence, but didn't quite know exactly how to use it or show it or put it into action. I know I'm just thinking of parallels between that and what we do at Kudosee. Kudosee is sort of a servant leadership style tool, in the respect that it really does love that transparency and the openness, because people really just grow, get better with that transparency there. There's a line here that I sort of, where I found this, the importance of transparency in leadership becomes more apparent as it fosters a workplace culture of open communication for both employees and leaders. And you're the same with your community. It just allows that openness, that open culture, that servant leadership style culture. I think that's great. The mentors just must get a charge, being able to help out people that are just budding. They're budding and just need a little bit of nurturing.
Yeah, absolutely. They tell us that it's very rewarding, very exciting. We hear a lot of stories like they're approached by a lot of different platforms asking them to do training or teaching, and our model, because it's so interactive and so human, that they really love it. I guess another thought that comes to mind. So leveling up is a startup. So we've got both our product and our team. The other big challenge is as a startup. So the very definition of a startup is a business model that's new and different and hasn't been proven out there.
Hmm.
And and so we're basically a continual series of experiments, and
Yes.
those experiments aren't necessarily all going to work.
Yes.
If they all did, if it was obvious how to do what we were trying to do, somebody else would have already done it.
Yes. Yes.
So there's lots of obstacles, lots of questions, lots of experiments that we have to run, and by really leaning into that place of imposter syndrome, of vulnerability, of transparent leadership within our team, I can share with my team and say, hey, I think we should try this. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Or vice versa. They can say, hey, Mike, I think we should try this. And we can all sort of choose to be vulnerable and say, no idea if that's going to work, or hey, maybe that was an idea that should have come from me, but it came from you, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there, we have to all set our egos aside
Yes.
and say this is all about, leaning into figuring out what works and what doesn't, and
Nice.
not not worrying about necessarily who comes up with what great
Yes.
idea. And
Yeah.
really, we do this thing every week. And so if there's startups listening to this broadcast, it's not, I learned it from somewhere else. I can't remember where I learned it from, so I certainly won't take credit for it. When we meet with our team every week, we spend time doing a round table where each person in the group shares what did they learn last week.
Okay.
We really focus on what did we learn, so that we can course correct continually.
Yes.
We can
Yes.
constantly lean into, we didn't know enough, we didn't know everything last week, this week we learned something new, so that we can course correct every week. So that
Oh,
round
and
table every week
yeah.
from every team member saying, what did you learn this last week,
Yeah.
is really key.
And that's so important in that community feel, in that feel where we're all equal citizens. Do you know what I mean? I have an idea, or I have a um, something that I learned last week that I need to share with everyone, because maybe it can course correct us in a really neat direction, right? I've also, in the musicality of it all, I have musicians in the family. And the phrase is, when you ever play a wrong note, it's not a wrong note, it's just a different direction.
Yeah.
You know? And so, I think being able to grow and learn and develop in a community setting like that, where there is this transparency and that trust to be able to grow, what a fantastic thing. Absolutely fantastic. One of the things I wanted to address too was the access of information. When you sit down with your team like that on a weekly basis, involving everyone in decision making, that increases transparency just on its own.
Yeah.
So did you want to take, we're about 12:23 now, so we have a few minutes left. Did you want to take a little time and talk about your switched focus and in your interactive mentorship with Leveling Up?
Sure. So yeah, Leveling Up is a startup. We were first monetized December 2018, and we've learned a lot on this journey. Been a fantastic, not necessarily easy, but fantastic journey. Um, our initial focus was, and you mentioned the name Leveling Up Leadership Inc. Our initial focus was on providing leadership equipping for, say, mid-career corporate managers.
Okay.
And we did that in sort of a small group interactive setting. Our experts were executive coaches, our members were mid-career managers and leaders, or often not just mid-career, maybe later in their career, but folks who really wanted to lean into learning those skills, those people-to-people skills. Was going really well, really starting to see in startup land, you call it traction, see increased traction early 2020. And then this COVID thing hit.
Yeah.
And now we were Zoom before Zoom was cool. We were all video conference. So COVID didn't impact us negatively that way. What did happen is our members told us, Mike, we love what's going on here, but my company has zeroed out my training budget. And there's a huge uncertainty in what direction my career is going in. And honestly, Mike, I'll come back, but for now, I can't justify spending time on leadership equipping. It's just not something. So as a startup, we had a decision to make. We could either say, okay, well, let's wait until the world comes back together. And I'm glad we didn't do that, because here we are a year later and the world is still trying to come back together.
It's taken a different direction, that's for sure.
Exactly. Or we could, as a startup, we could say, hey, there might be others who would benefit from our model. And so we went through a really neat testing phase where we said, we're going to test like 6 different market verticals, not knowing what could work. Long story short, one of the verticals we tested is the artist market. Our CMO, Julie deBoer herself, is a professional artist and went through a journey of mentorship a number of years ago. And she said, mentoring, interactive feedback worked for me. Maybe my people are like me. And so we offered mentoring groups for artists, and instead of executive coaches, we have master artists, so 2-3 decades, 4 decades of experience in their craft. And we thought, hey, let's see what happens. And what happened is it took off like a rocket. Nice. What we discovered is that artists lean into a place of vulnerability so well. Art is about being vulnerable.
It is, yes.
They leaned into that so super well. And they also told us that even before COVID, they were feeling isolated and disconnected. That as a community, it's art is about connecting, and so they're wired to want to connect, and they're feeling disconnected, and COVID has just made that worse. And then from a business perspective, what we've very quickly uncovered, and I guess I'm spilling the beans here, this market is incredibly underserved. I think everybody's heard the phrase starving artist. And so therefore, I guess a lot of businesses steer clear of artists. It turns out that artists aren't necessarily starving, but they are, of course, very picky about where they're going to spend their limited funds on. And it needs to be rewarding, it needs to be meaningful, it needs to be an environment where they're respected, where they're given dignity, where they're given skills, where they can grow quickly. And as we've talked about, that is the values and the community that we were building back in leadership days and continue to build. So we quickly left the leadership envelope behind, and we've now entered 100% into the artist market. That's our 100% focus.
Nice.
And it's growing quite quickly. We have members on every continent, every habitable continent.
There you go.
Members in Antarctica yet, someday soon. So we have members on all across the globe. We have all the time zones. We span the entire globe in terms of time zones. We have masters all over the globe. It's just been so super rewarding to see this model make such a meaningful, significant difference in the lives of so many people.
Oh,
so
that's absolutely.
There's the journey.
Yes, nice. No, that's absolutely wonderful. So if there are any budding artists out there who want to have an expert of their choice, who are feeling unsure, unseen, or unaccomplished, please go to levelingup.ca or Leveling Up Leadership Inc. And they're there to help you. They're there to help you on that journey with a whole lot of transparency and a very good environment for growing and learning and doing. And in the last few seconds here, again, I want to say Leveling Up Leadership, levelingup.ca. Please go there. I also want to give a shout out to any of our Kudosee platform users. We have a variety of customers, teachers, leaders, business coaches, fitness coaches, CXOs, nonprofits. I just want to say thank you very, very much from Kudosee to you for using our platform. And we need to add artists to that, that roster of users. So that's wonderful. Mike, thank you so much for spending the last half hour. I've enjoyed it. This is definitely, I'm in for another sometime in the future. If you're up to it, we can talk on some other strategic topic. But yeah, it's been a really good half hour, and I thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Val. Appreciate this.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just going to press the exit button, and I hope all goes well with you on your side on Facebook. And guys, this will be recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again. Okay, thanks again, Mike.
Thanks. See you again.
Bye-bye.